So perhaps you might be wondering why a guy like me has been invited to come and talk about eco-modernism when the theme should clearly be nuclear power. Well, don't feel disappointed yet. I promise you, there will be a dash of nuclear power involved. So where does my story about eco-modernism start? In 1953, a heavy storm raged over the North Sea. It caused a flood of massive proportions, flooding large areas of the Netherlands, Belgium, and United Kingdom. This legendary storm tide became known as the North Sea Flood of 1953. In the Netherlands, several dikes were breached by this storm flood, making it the most affected area, having a death toll over 1,800 people. Literally meaning lowlands, the Netherlands has fought for centuries against the possible threats of inundation by seawater. After 1953, the Dutch have greatly reduced their vulnerability by investing in protective infrastructure. This was called the Delta Program, and it protects them against exceptional floods. One of the biggest challenges of our century might be climate change, where we will have to learn to live with the consequences of a higher temperature world. Today, the people in developing countries, first of all, they're as vulnerable as the Dutch were 70 years ago. And they will be the ones who will suffer the most from the consequences of climate change. And there are also some very important lessons to be learned from what the Dutch did. First of all, after 1953, the Netherlands, they became a wealthier society. And being a wealthier society, they were able to afford more expensive infrastructure. And the same thing is true for developing countries. Imagine that they would get higher incomes in developing countries. This would enable them to protect themselves better against the consequences of climate change by being able to invest in more expensive protective infrastructure. And therefore, I would say that developing countries, they need more economic growth. But economic growth, it's not the only thing they will need. They will also need more energy. For example, air conditioning against hot weather conditions, or refrigerators against foodborne illnesses, or desalination plants against water shortages. These are all examples that will require more energy. But here is the challenge. If somewhere in the future 10 billion people use as much energy as somebody who lives in Sweden right now, the global energy consumption would increase 5-fold. 5 times the energy we use today. That's a huge challenge. And nowadays, some people wonder whether we still need abundant energy or growth. They advocate to shrink the economy or to lower global energy consumption. And they say that if everyone in this world, if they would embrace a modern lifestyle, then it would push the Earth beyond its limits. And I dare to challenge this vision, and so did a group of 19 researchers, activists, and philanthropists when they published an eco-modernist manifesto in 2015. It was the launch of a new environmental movement called Ecomodernism. The central question is how mankind can reach its maximum potential while nature is flourishing again. They defend the idea that human progress can be reconciled with the environment, if we decouple human progress from environmental impacts, well, it's not economic growth per se that harms the planet, but it's rather an unintended side effect of the polluting technologies we use. And therefore, we must use the clean technologies that we already have today. And also, we must develop the clean technologies that we do not have yet. And as a nature lover, I identified myself with the fresh and positive ideas that were in the Eco-modernist manifesto. I start from the view that what we have here on Earth is precious. I feel this sense of urgency to protect the climate and to protect the environment. And eco-modernism, for me, it enables me to turn this sense of urgency into ambition, and to a yes we can mentality. Yes, we can save the environment in the most effective way. Yes, we can help people out of poverty by offering them a modern lifestyle. And yes, we can ensure that both humanity and the environment get the best out of themselves. And eco-modernism is a vision which approaches climate policy in a very pragmatic way. Pragmatism means having all the solutions on the table. And to stop climate change, we will need to, for instance, have a low-carbon electricity grid. And if we want all the solutions on the table, this means we need to have renewable energy and nuclear power. And keeping nuclear power as part of the solution has some advantages. As eco-modernist Lee Phillips would say, nuclear power has a mammoth energy density. It does not consume a lot of fuel. It does not need a lot of resources to build a nuclear power plant. And moreover, it takes up only little land. Nuclear power barely emits CO2, which makes it a useful tool in the fight against climate change. For example, last year, about half of the Belgian electricity was generated by nuclear power. On top of all of that, nuclear power is one of the most effective and fastest ways to decarbonize an electricity grid in the past. For example, if we look at Sweden and France, and even in Belgium, we should be proud about this. Next to electricity, there are some other sectors that are just harder to decarbonize, such as aviation or industry or ship transport. And we do not have all the solutions yet for all of these sectors. So that's why, if we really want to stop climate change and reach net zero emissions, we will have to innovate to zero. We will have to develop a range of totally new technologies. And for example, negative emission technologies, such as direct air capture or seasonal storage or carbon neutral fuels for aviation or ship transport, or advanced renewables, or advanced nuclear. And speaking of advanced nuclear could provide low carbon heat to some industrial applications and to buildings. And to develop all of these new technologies, we need a European Green Deal. The European Green Deal should accelerate innovation by investing more money into research and development. And on top of that, it should also have an active role in deploying the new technologies on a massive scale. It should be ambitious. But yeah, the European Green Deal should not exclude certain technologies, such as nuclear power or carbon capture. Otherwise, it would be like playing a video game called the European Green Deal in hard mode. In the 20th century, we have mainly focused on what caused environmental problems, pointing to scapegoats. I think in the 21st century, we need to do better. We need to transcend this negative spiral and create a compelling story of solvers, an optimistic story in which we can all contribute to. And here is my message to the nuclear industry. The nuclear industry should stop to feel embarrassed about the ghosts of the past, but they should instead be proud that they're working on the solutions of tomorrow. And today, it's more than necessary to dare to stand up for solutions we cannot simply exclude. And this is where eco-modernism can make a difference. It starts from a view where developing countries will need more and more energy and resources. And yeah, this is the only way, if we really want to do this, is if we want to reconcile human needs with the environment, we need to decouple. We need to do more with less. And actually, decoupling means doing more with less. We want to use more energy with less CO2. We want to feed more people with less agricultural land, leaving more space for nature. And we want to create more prosperity with less fertilizer, water, metals, etc., dematerializing the economy. Doing more with less is the most effective way of advancing both humanity and the environment. So, as eco-modernists, we want to change the face of the environmental movement and update it to a version that's ready for the 21st century. Environmentalism 2.0. And the environmental movement should focus on all pragmatic solutions. And that also includes nuclear power if we really, really want to fight climate change. Thank you very much.